Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week episode. I think we're on 5 of Science and the Soul. I'm so super excited to be joined, as always, with my fabulous co-host, Dear James. I am the Lady Jaclyn, human design expert, and each week we come with you, or we come to you, and we hold space of having conversations about weekly themes and topics that literally drop into our laps. That's how it works. So, hey, James, do you want
Yes,
to say
it.
hello? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Dear James, your intuitive, offering intuitive insights, answers, and advice to your life questions. And it's Science and the Soul. And we had our own little navigating
Uh-huh.
crisis. That's why we're 9, 10 minutes late, right? I mean,
Mhm.
don't you love how the universe teased this up for us? Like, no, we show up on time, we whatever. And then they're
Yeah,
like, yeah. Oh, you want
yeah.
to talk about navigating crisis? Okay.
Yeah. Like it's kind of like practice what you preach, which is so funny because I was 15 minutes ready and I'm sitting here all calm and I'm busy trying to log in and nothing's working. Like literally nothing's working. I have to restart everything and I just see the time ticking and I'm thinking, well, this is ironic because we're literally going to preach about navigating crisis and I can feel my blood pressure is rising. My stress is kicking in and
Right?
I'm like, okay, this is a physical description of our conversation we're going to have today.
Isn't it? And I'm laughing because, of course, you're an Aries out of the gate. We talk about this all the time. You're an Aries out
Uh-huh.
of the gate. I'm on the train. Let's go. I'm that Virgo that has that same. I have no Aries in my chart, but this Virgo. So we have to look and see what it is, Jacqueline. But this thing about,
Hmm.
on time, let's go, on the train, let's rock it. And here we are, and we're sitting there. And I started laughing because in my head, like you, I'm like, oh, the irony of the fact that we're talking about navigating crisis. We're having technical difficulties, can't get each other connected and get on and everything. And then this moment of like grace, right? Where you're like, patience, grace,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
allow, breathe,
Surrender.
surrender,
Mm-hmm.
breathe. We get. Thank you, universe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, and this is the thing when people say, be careful what you wish for. Because it is true. It's like you're putting the intention out. So you got to be ready to receive the intention that you're putting out. So I think it's a beautiful way to kind of make it practical, the topic that we're talking about. Because you know me, 5-1 projector, all about practicality.
Yes.
How does it practically look in your life at the moment, navigating crisis, reacting versus responding? Like I could feel myself wanting to react. I literally, just before we went live, I said to James, I was like, I'm about 2 seconds away from hurling my laptop across the room. I was so, I could feel it. But then I called myself and I was like, okay, let's just respond to the situation with joy and laughter for what it actually is, which is an irony or a synchronistic moment. I mean, let's put it that way.
Beautiful. And as we do on Science and the Soul, we bridge the practical with the spiritual. And so this is the beauty of this. And and again, it is walk the talk. And it is for, the Lady Jacqueline and I to sit here and say, in this moment, we could have been hurling laptops and we could have been
Mm-hmm.
reacting. And instead we were both kind of like, because it's not our personalities. Our personalities are like, let's go,
Mm-hmm.
let's handle this. Like, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, universe has a whole different, and this is how it's going to apply to everybody in your lives when you're listening to this episode. How do we respond, not react?
Mm.
Couldn't get
And
any
so let's
more.
kick that off. Right. So let's kick it off, right? Because let's actually talk about it. So, how do you come to a place where you have the self awareness enough to know, okay, I can catch myself. It's almost like if I explain the situation, and I've had this multiple times in this human experience called life, where you're actually looking at yourself as if you're a second person, and you're kind of going, okay, so you have two options here. Like either you can do what you're wanting to do, which is your emotional reaction in the moment based on how you feel, and this everything is kicking in and your whole body then changes because you're influencing the chemical process within your body to kind of fight or flight, right? So the adrenaline increases, your stress hormone like gets kicked into overdrive, your body goes ready to kind of, okay, I'm ready, like let's get the show on the road kind of vibe. Or you have the second option, which is, I want to say, the aligned, empowered option, which is sometimes not the
Yes.
easiest. And this is the question. It's like, how do you get there? How do you get there where you can catch yourself looking at yourself going, okay, I got two options. Which option am I going to go with?
Absolutely. And isn't it funny? Like, I can literally in this moment, as this example, truly universally inspired, because literally what you do with yourself is you know your own reactions, right? So you know your personalities. And this is what you're talking about. In the third person, we're looking at ourselves in the third person. And I sat here and I go, now I know in my head, mentally, it was brrrr, just like you're saying, I'm going to hurl the laptop 2 seconds away from hurling the laptop. And yet you take that beat, you take that breath, and instead of reacting, it's like you just step back. And I could feel myself. I step back, and I was just, and the word that comes, Jaclyn, is allow. I just allowed, because in my head, after the initial part where you want to react, I was like, okay, well, there's a possibility that maybe we're not doing this show today. There's a possibility that it'll be right on time, and everything's purposeful. So in that, when we step back and allow, as you and I both did, we connected, we carried on, we started when we started. Yes, we were late. Both of us don't like that, but you know what? The universe working on our behalves teed up for us this entire conversation, this episode.
Absolutely. So what I'm hearing from you is the first step is definitely self-awareness. So to know thyself, right? Because how many times, like how many of you that are listening are actually conscious, and I know you are because you're here with us, but how many times do you notice other people, or have you noticed yourself being so unconscious in your responses or your reactions, right, that you actually need to kind of first come to terms with, who am I in a crisis situation? Like, what is my first reaction? And that is not, it's not actually your truth, right? And this is where the first thing is know thyself, because it's identifying and knowing, okay, this is the pattern of the way that I respond or react in a crisis situation where things aren't seemingly going my way, right? When I want to control, when I want to, like react in the emotion. So the first part is knowing what is your behavior, but then also knowing your actual truth. The truth is, like you said so beautifully, James, it's like, this could not have started in any other way, like in any better way than it did having this moment. And therefore it hits even like harder, even deeper. It resonates even truer. And therefore now we can sit in a place of gratitude, knowing, okay, the plan, we're talking about our plan
right,
versus the plan, you know what I mean, was so much better. Like, that's what you keep talking about, like our plan versus the plan.
And now I sit here and I want to acknowledge two things. One is the beauty of, I literally sit in this moment and feel expanded, meaning I experience something beyond me, my plan, the way I would do, and so the beauty of that is, they're just really having to go with us, Jaclyn. I'm like, really? No, really?
Yeah, the other cut off, but we're back.
We're back, and so, and I wanted to say, I'm coming on with Haley and Anne and Lori, because equally, Jaclyn, we are having our moment, and equally those that are tuning in and listening with us live. In that moment, they had a choice. How do I react? Are they coming on? Are they doing this? Do I leave? Am I going to go? Or do I stay? Am I patient? You see what I mean? The beauty of, and while this isn't a crisis in the big scheme of things, in the big scheme of life, it's a little mini crisis. But it's interesting that it afforded both us, the hosts of the show, and our listeners, those who join us, that choice of, well, are they coming on? Or are we going to do this? Am I going to stay? You see what I mean? It's so beautiful. Yes, hi, Haley. Let go and let God is my motto this week. I'm going to say this, amen, amen, amen. And there's Anne. The entire week has been like this for me. And there is one of our key elements, right, Jaclyn? Grace. The difference between reacting and responding is a state of grace.
So you said something now where you were like, it's a small crisis. I mean, it's not even like, it can't even be given the words crisis actually
Right.
in the greater scheme of things. But when you're going through it, doesn't it feel like it literally is the end of the world?
Yeah, 9/11. I mean, for you and I, there's a show we're hosting. We want to be on time. We're, and so for us, it's a crisis in the sense that it's not coming together as scheduled, as planned. And yet, and look at the ripple. That's what I'm saying. For those attending and listening and showing up and offering their time with us, what was their piece? Like, do I stay? Are they showing up? What's going on? And in the same for us, we're like, So yes, it's our own little mini crisis.
I want to give you a great explanation, or an explanation, a story about what happened to me. Was it a week or 2 weeks ago, right? So I was part of this group of ladies, and we were launching a beautiful program, and I was first up in the first week, right? So it was scheduled to go live. I was literally there 30 minutes before the time. So I'm getting on live, I'm getting everything right, and we're going to go live in and all of a sudden this similar thing happened where Facebook didn't want to link up my Zoom. Then my Zoom would freeze. Then my computer froze. Then literally this whole entire process. Then I was on the phone with one of the girls, and I was like, listen, can you create a link maybe and go live? But now remember, it's supposed to be week one or day one of 5 days. I'm the first person to show up to 280 ladies that are waiting for me. I'm the one that's also going to start and kick off like kind of the program that we're launching. Can I tell you, it took 55 minutes for me to jump online, right? From the scheduled time, I was nearly an hour late. I was freaking out. I had what I call an ugly cry. I had like a mini meltdown. I was like, oh my gosh, this cannot be even worse. Like, how is this even possible? I was at the verge of going, okay, we need to reschedule, but that would kick everything off or out of sync, because we literally have 5 days scheduled and planned with each lady, right? And I was like, no, okay, so the universe wants me again to show up, because what it's actually telling me, exactly like this, it's teeing up the beautiful, I want to say, foundation for what this actually is going to look like. I ended up going live on my phone, right? And you could see my eyes were bloodshot, and I just told the story. I was authentic. I gave my pitch. And can I tell you that so many ladies reached out and was like, oh my gosh, that resonated so beautifully with me. That was so authentic. That was so real. I can't actually believe it. You literally were walking what you were preaching. So while you are seemingly navigating a crisis at this point in your life, when you get to the self-awareness of knowing why you're doing what you're doing, because for me in that moment, I had to connect really deeply with my why in order to take one step after the other to navigate the seemingly like end of the world moment in terms of, launching a business. And as I did that, while I was doing that, the fear was being released, the limitations were being released, and exactly like what you said, James, that expansion, that gratitude, the understanding, the knowing of the bigger picture hit so beautifully. And when it was done, I was like, that could not have gone better. That seriously could not have gone better. Isn't that beautiful?
It is, and I think that's the piece that we're talking about. In navigating crisis, it really truly is allowing. It is, just as Haley stated, patience, grace. But truly it's about the patience and the grace are present because you allow. It's like you just said, Jaclyn, when you allow to, because you have to connect deeper, you have to move beyond the crisis. Crisis is on the surface. We have to move beyond, allow. We have to step back. That's the way you get there. That is the literal, practical way you get there. Because otherwise, you can see in a crisis, or a crisis can be a relationship crisis, a career or work crisis, a relationship, friendship crisis. Whatever the crisis, a world crisis, we can stay at the surface, we can react. The reaction is immediate and it's on the surface. So we're missing what the universe is doing for us. So in our example of the show and what you just offered as the example, it couldn't have been better. We didn't plan to go 10 minutes late. We, the Lady Jaclyn and Dear James, didn't plan to go 10 minutes late, and you didn't plan to go 55 minutes late, but the universe did on our behalf, on your behalf. And so there's this beauty that, and it's not easy. I mean, come. I mean, it's not, as Jaclyn just articulated, and as we just shared at the top of the hour with the show, it's not easy. In that moment, it's a crisis. And yet, because we simply didn't react, we allowed, even with an ugly cry. I love that, with an ugly cry. And that's okay. That's human. That's great. The gift is in then, as you articulated, you finished the show and you were like, that couldn't have gone better. And there is this feeling of expansion, like I just grew beyond my own self-limitation. I persevered, I had patience, I went to the depth, I released what I would know thyself, what I would normally do, to allow. Without the allowing, we're not getting to the good stuff.
Wouldn't you then say as well, like for me, it's this deeper connection with source. So you're actually building a deeper trust, because as soon as you do that, it's almost like, oh, wow, okay, this is what this looks like when you surrender, when I actually trust in the plan versus my plan, right? That human experience versus kind of the cosmic divine order, right? So it's kind of going, okay, I get it now. Like it's let's be bold enough to kind of say that maybe certain crises are beautiful windows and opportunities to deepen the connection with the divine. And sometimes, like, instead of waiting for a really massive crisis, you're able to shift, or you're able to deepen the connection or learn that level of trust, so that you don't need to experience a large scale crisis, right?
Absolutely. And it's this piece, because they're saying to me right now, and I'm having the awareness of the fact that as we strengthen, as we exercise, see, this was an exercise of our soul source connection. The plan, not our plan. And so, as we've talked about, and so here's this beauty, here's the gift. And and that's what allowed me personally, knowing that allowed me to step beyond myself, hands off the wheel, let go, and see what happens and be okay with it. And there's a piece here, Jaclyn, that's so interesting, because typically, like in the example you gave and ours at the top of the hour, we only know in hindsight, typically, that, see, it turned out far better, or, oh, you, the universe, the unseen, was teeing up something for us. But we realize it in hindsight. Where we want to get to in navigating crisis is knowing in the forefront, knowing at the moment it's occurring, it's happening for you. Allow. I mean, this word, allow, allow, allow. Because once we allow, then we're going to be able to see what's on offer. It won't have to be hindsight. It'll be immediate in the moment. They're giving me that. Do you see? And I'm like, yeah, okay.
So then it is practicing and reframing the awareness, so that you can actually catch yourself quicker, so that you don't first have to spiral. And that's exactly what happened with us, like it's literally going, oh, okay, I'm catching myself. I'm not hurling my laptop across the room. This is happening for me. So let's just go live when I'm supposed to go live, and that'll be okay. And therefore we can kind of come on, and we're not razzled, we're not frazzled. We had almost moments of potentially going down that road, but we decided, okay, we're going to go right instead. And we're having a beautiful aligned conversation. And that's the key. So the starting point is knowing yourself. The second point is really cultivating and I want to say remapping the story of, do you believe that everything is working out for you, or do you believe that life is just kind of working out and you're just stumbling along, and you kind of kind of going, maybe not, maybe there is something kind of like bigger, like the plan for me, so it's again, that's kind of the second. Yeah.
And the third, as I hold up two fingers, and the
Mm-hmm.
third is control, releasing control. Because in the allowing, what's required of us? Release control. We know who we are, know thyself. Okay, we know how we would react or respond, and we want to respond, not react. And so, release control. There's something in this. When we allow, there's something in this. There's something, as Jaclyn always says, juicy. There's going to be something juicy here for me. Will I release control to allow so as to be in a state of grace and receptivity to receive?
Mm-hmm.
And when we do, the aha moments, we see it again in the beginning. And look at us. I mean, I'm being, brutally honest here. I received it in hindsight this morning. I mean, I was receiving, but I really got it in hindsight.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
The epicness of that for me is a massive reminder of what's on offer when we simply trust and stay in that state of allowance, grace, receptivity. Because, thanks, you handled that far better than
Beautifully. Yeah.
far better than we do. It's
So then let's look at then
amazing.
control, right? Because control is such almost a natural programming for a lot of us. It's maybe the condition. And if you look at why we're wanting to control, that potentially comes from fear or a limiting belief or a lack thereof, So it's kind of, again, checking into, say, the awareness of self. Where am I trying to control? Because the deeper underpinning, the foundation, the reason I'm wanting to control is because I want to protect myself. I don't feel safe, right? So how can I connect with safety in that moment? Like for me, if I look at, I could have had the option of, okay, I'm wanting to try to control the situation. How can I do this? I literally even was like, okay, maybe I should go live on my phone. And then I looked at my phone and I was like, my battery's about to die. And then I've got the iPhone where you got to plug in this thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
The buds,
thingies.
the earbuds, the earpieces. Yes, the earbuds.
Earpieces into your charging port cable, right? And I was like, oh no, then my phone's gonna die. And I was like, oh wait, it's the wrong earpiece because it's actually that other. And then I was like, wait, what am I doing? Like I'm going down this road of trying to control the process, and I was like, that's exhausting. Like let's just have patience, and that's exactly it. It's this release, and instead of getting auto kicked into control, because the control comes from the fear. I don't feel safe. What are people going to think about me? I can't not show up on time because I look unprofessional. I'm going to feel razzled. Like my hair's not blah, 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 blah. Like literally that monkey mind goes on. So again, it's understanding again, like where in your life do you feel the need to control? And that is the time. That is the moment that you got to take a step back, take a few breaths. And exactly like James said, having the self-awareness to know, okay, hold on, where is this actually coming from?
And there's such a beauty, Jaclyn. I was just, as you were speaking about all of that, I was like, let's take this to one of the most, intimate and the most ordinary, if you will, routine forms of crisis, relationships, romantic relationships. Huge element in terms of where crisis can occur. And the opportunity to not react, but to respond. And what is required? Oh, there are times, people want to push your buttons, right? Put up an emoji there in the comments for us where, yes, if when people want to push your buttons, and it can be a friendship, a partner, a love, but the issue is that typically what happens? We react and we react and we react, and it gets louder and more aggressive and harsher to the point where sometimes it becomes a real crisis in terms of batterment and so forth. So the issue is to, again, with grace, allow. If someone's pushing your buttons, if someone's coming at you, it's really wild when you speak calmly and someone's yelling, and they're yelling and you speak calmly, and you speak calmly and they're yelling. Within a few minutes, the person yelling finally stops. But if you raise and elevate and react in that,
in their ways.
right? Because there's that beautiful saying of, for every action, there's a reaction. Okay. And yet, yes, that's true. That's universal law. That is true. Action, reaction. But it doesn't mean that the reaction has to be that you react. The reaction can be that you responded. Respond. Oh, I responded in a way that was disengaging or disarming. You brought it down. You kept it calm. You kept it in a state of grace. It's not easy. It is not easy when people are coming at us and they're pushing the buttons, and because we want to what? Defend. Or we want to argue a point, or we don't want an error or an omission to go by. But again, if we're doing that, we're on the surface. We are reacting. As opposed to, okay, I'm going to speak calmly, I'm going to listen, which will disengage the situation 9 times out of 10. And then later, we're able to respond. I heard you. I understand what, may I ask if this is what you were, what I heard was this, but do you mean this? You will have a far different outcome. You'll have a far different experience. Because so many times, I don't know your experience, Jaclyn, but mine is many times it will be, and if you watch people, you can see, oh, what they're fighting about, isn't the issue. What they're really saying and what he or she wants is this, not that. This is just the vehicle, the way to get to what's really not being said. I'm hurt. I feel unappreciated. But no. It's something else, and crisis meets crisis. Reaction meets reaction.
Absolutely. So then, what I'm also hearing, is which is so interesting, because then it brings up the topic of detachment, right? And it's awareness of self again. So it's, if you're coming from a place of knowing your truth, so all of the pushing of buttons you're speaking about, why is it, or what are the buttons being pushed, right? And it's got nothing to do with the other person, because if it's not that person in front of you, it's going to be the next person that you encounter, or it's going to be the next person that drives in front of you on the highway. You know what I mean? Something is going to push that button. So again, it's coming back to the awareness of, okay, so what is the buttons that the universe is trying to show me, because I am ready to receive it so that I can transmute it, I can reframe it, I can reprogram it to truly step into my higher purpose, right? And my higher being and my higher self. Make sense?
And I'm just looking for this from yesterday's show, because Elizabeth, who joined us yesterday, and she had made a comment about doubt. And so, it brings it up because you just used this word about disengagement, and it was really beautiful. They said to me, the universe said to me, the positive power of doubt is discernment, is empowering. So when we doubt, the positive aspect of doubt is discernment. So when we can disengage, disentangle, not react, and then step back and discern. The power of discernment is huge, because then we're not in the muck of it. We're not in the chaos of the conflict and the crisis. We're not in that space. We're stepping back. We're receptive. We're expansive, and we're listening. Again, I know, not easier said than done at moments, because we're having an argument. We're having a row. Well, let's go toe to toe. But that's, for every action, there's a reaction. That's that crisis meets crisis. Yes, okay, if you want to have that experience, but you don't have to. And it doesn't mean by walking away. Sorry, I just wanted, and it doesn't mean that by walking away, meaning stepping back, that the other person is right, or you've, acquiesced, or, said that. No, you're just taking the steps to ensure that when you respond, you're doing it in a way that serves not only yourself, but whomever else is involved.
Mm. So on that note, it's almost like giving the invitation to everybody that's listening, and even if you're listening on the replay as well, is to go through the next couple of days in a process of detachment. So kind of going, okay, this is the work, like we've been conditioned in this culture to kind of, you got to do the work, you got to put in the blood, sweat, and tears in order to be successful. Now, the work, as I like to put it, is this kind of work, is the knowing thyself, is understanding and giving yourself the opportunity, permission to have those triggers come up so that you can heal yourself, so that you can truly step with 2 feet into the confident, best version of yourself, right? And then you can ultimately uplift the entire planet. So as you go through the next couple of days, you're going to feel triggered. You're going to feel provoked. You're going to feel like someone's pushing buttons. In that moment, we're always all about taking a step back, which physically means taking a step back by breathing instead of getting all caught up in the emotions, because that emotional response is going to come straight away based on the patterns of the neural pathways in your brain of what you keep thinking. So if you stop thinking in that moment and just take a breath and become aware in the now of where you're actually at and what is actually happening, not what you think is going to happen or what happened in the past and therefore is going to have the same reaction or repercussion now in the future or in the present moment, is what is actually happening. And then acknowledging, okay, what's actually being experienced is the opportunity to release a version of myself that is no longer in alignment of where I'm wanting to go. It's giving me the opportunity to trust, to connect, to surrender, to practice peace. I mean, like Haley said, she's like, it must have been so difficult for you to really release control being in Aries. That is one of the biggest lessons. I always say, like, I wasn't divinely born with patience. That is one of my soul's contract. Like, that's a fine print when my soul decided, cool, I want to come back to earth. By the way, PS,
what
like
is
in small font, you're going to learn patience.
right? Qu'est-ce
That
que c'est
is,
patience? What is why don't
yeah.
I don't like this? Can we
Yeah.
redraft? No.
Literally, like, absolutely. So it was so interesting because I was like, okay, I was definitely not born with patience, so I've chosen to learn patience. And one of the things for me was
Yes.
the universe literally sent me to live in India for 6 months. And if you've been to India, you'll understand how much patience you actually need on an hourly basis just to just to kind of reconnect with yourself, because there's so much going on in that country, honestly. And I always laugh because that was my catalyst to understand, oh, hang on, maybe I wasn't born with it innately within me, but I definitely can learn it. And that was kind of the first steps to learning it. And this was the exact same process of learning patience. So it's exactly that. It's self-awareness. It's kind of taking a step back, taking deep breaths, reconnecting with the truth of the situation, and then doing the modalities, doing the work in order to reconnect with yourself. Like, while I was waiting for my computer to load, I was tapping. I was literally tapping and I was breathing and I was like, okay, I'm feeling what I'm feeling, but we're getting this out, because I knew that these emotions weren't serving me. So what are you doing,
Yes.
or what do you need to do in order to allow yourself to go through the process in an empowering way?
Yes. And there's a piece here, Jaclyn, too, because it's interesting. Two things. One, I had the same experience when I moved to France. Did not speak French. Had never lived abroad. I had gone and traveled, but never lived in a foreign country, foreign culture, foreign language, everything foreign. And you arrive, and what I realized immediately was, if I'm going to make this something great, I needed to immediately be literally childlike. I had to surrender, and I had to be childlike. And because I was childlike, meaning I just simply allowed. If going to the grocery store and not speaking French took 5 hours because it's Pictionary shopping, as I called it, well, that was what I needed in order to, because it's a simple thing of like, I just want milk. Yes, but there's like irradiated on the shelf, there's the cooler stuff, there's 16 different kinds of it. And I'm like, in America, I'm like, yeah, you get your whole milk, your non-fat, or your 2%. Ta-da. It's not the same. So you're allowing. And so And the second point is this beauty of, so the allowing, the surrendering, the being childlike will afford you a more expansive state of being, a more expansive experience. So in any crisis, one could say that, moving to a foreign country and going the first time to a grocery store, it can be a crisis experience. It can be traumatizing, overwhelming. It can send you into, and yet, okay, yes, and okay, allow. Simply keep allowing. And this state of when we afford ourselves that moment of breath, the work that you're talking about and everything, you afford yourself the ability to see. Not see what's the crisis, not see what's on the surface. That's easy. That's coming at you like a freight train, or you're experiencing it. The difference is to see, meaning what's the pearl, what's the gift, what is hidden within the moment, like we talked about at the top of the hour, as Jaclyn's sharing with our India's and the launch of her other program. These things allow us the opportunity to see, to really see. So with a loved one, with a relationship, work, a boss, what is it really? And once you know what it is truly, really, you then have, because you've practiced disengagement, discernment, you're responding, not reacting. So when you do it, you can choose to say, okay, you know what? I see what that really is. As they say in French, c'est pas grave. It's not serious. I'm not gonna, or I don't need to react or respond in this moment. I'll take it. I can come back to it a week from now. Hey, I noticed last week we got into this confrontation and everything. Is it really about this? Or because it will afford you the opportunity to see both them, you, and arrive at a more expanded state, because what you're looking at is from, as Jaclyn said, I had a deeper place. If we're just going toe to toe on the surface, it's going to be chaos, crisis, confrontation, all these C's, instead of reconciliation, the beauty of these things where receptivity, all these different things where we get a more harmonious outcome. Choice is ours.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So guys and girls, ladies and gents, you have a beautiful invitation to reconnect with yourself, to take 2 deep breaths instead of reacting, and choose to respond in a way that's empowering not only to you, but the person that you're actually dealing with. And then through that, this is how we lift the vibration of the planet, because we definitely need it. Like, I can see people are really getting or spiraling down in the overwhelm of the current crisis. So instead of escalating by adding to the frequency or jumping on the fear train, I like to say, like jumping on the fear train, instead of jumping on the fear train, jump on the train of empowerment, empowering yourself, empowering those around you, and getting tuned in and tapped in and turned on by the truth of the matter, which is that there is a reason for everything. Everything is actually working out for you. You are strong enough and more capable than you sometimes think that you are, and you can definitely navigate any crisis in your life, no matter how big or how small, because everything is working out for the greater good. And maybe in that moment, like we've already shared with you guys, maybe in that moment you might not see it, but definitely when you look back, you'll understand, oh, hang on, it has made me a better person. It has given me more wisdom to maybe inspire and help other people. I know I've learned a heck of a lot from the last 2 years, and therefore right now, as we're navigating this, I'm coming from a place of more certainty, actually, where I was extremely overwhelmed 2 years ago as we were entering in lockdown, as we were going through the fear or the what ifs, the uncertainty. I felt it all. And right now, instead of feeling all of those feels, I'm actually coming from a place of, hold on, like, if we can get through that, we can definitely get through this. And now I'm actually more confident, because I'm now knowing that I can hold space for other people that potentially was in the same space that I was 2 years ago, I can then inspire them to, be better versions of themselves, which is so beautiful. Had I known that 2 years ago, well, I didn't. I had to go through the journey, I had to go through the experience in order to sit here and go, oh, hang on, that's what I've learned. Like how much I've grown. That's the strength that I've actually embodied. And this is what we want for you as well. And this is how we're really going to transform and uplift the world, so that we don't have to fall into deeper crisis.
Yes, and there's a beauty of the fact that with science and the soul and the practicality and the spirituality, and look at where we are in 2022, and we're moving into the age of Aquarius. So the harmony, the harmonizing of the masculine and the feminine. And so there's this beautiful thing where, so individually, and look at it on an epic scale, on micro, macro, what we are being asked to do is come into greater harmony with ourselves. Selves meaning the halves of ourselves, these things where we have the masculine and the feminine. Do we have too much mass? And it doesn't matter what your gender is, take that away. The issue is we have both within us. So, am I too heavy-handed? Am I too aggressive? Am I too reactionary? I've got too much masculine, too much Mars going on. I need to bring in and up-level my feminine. Am I too passive? Am I passive-aggressive? Am I doing something where I'm being weak, meaning not having a balance, a harmony? Rise up your masculine. And that's not to say that feminine are those attributes. What it's saying is, if I'm not exercising myself, my sovereign self, and let's look at the current crisis, because they just popped it into my head. And this was also true of the British Empire and India. At the time of Gandhi and right now, the similarity is, at that time with the British Empire in India, you had a world power being aggressive, dominating a people that were seeking their sovereignty. They did not seek it by aggressive Mars, masculine war means. They sought it by simply walking up, and they were being beaten, constantly beaten. They did not raise arms. And what happened was, at that time, the British Empire was seen as a massive ogre, an aggressor. And India received its freedom, its sovereignty, because they didn't lift arms in an aggressive way. They were being beaten. Well, here in the current crisis, here's an aggressor. Yes, the Ukraine is defending themselves. They're responding, but they're also sending out this beautiful plea to people that is radiating, that's saying, we didn't ask for this. We're not interested in war. We're interested in peace and harmony. And the world is responding. And so there's this beauty of the fact that they could have, while they're defending themselves, they are doing so in a way that speaks to the heart and soul of people, to the heart and soul of our goodness. And so there's these beautiful parallels, Jaclyn, that are going on where, because it speaks to humanity. Humanity wants to love one another. We want this, right? Mm-hmm. And so that individually, micro and macro on the whole, it's mirroring how we are to bring about the harmony, the divine feminine, the Aquarian age, this opportunity to level up ourselves, so that the ripple effect, as you're speaking to, Jaclyn, is the whole of the whole levels up. That is so empowering and powerful and important. It's a powerful lesson.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was so beautiful. And I think that's a great way to end the show this week, because it was so beautiful. Like it was so powerful. I mean, I just honestly feel that there is practical examples of how to actually navigate this, and also looking and reminding it the greater scheme of what's actually happening, because I've noticed it, and I'm kind of patiently waiting for, okay, like this is exactly what needs to happen in order to calm the waters.
Sorry, they just popped into my head again. There was two things that I'm sorry. I want to close with this because, again, reaction versus responding, navigating crisis. And in the age of technology, what happens? From Twitter to Facebook to Instagram and so forth to our individual relationships and interactions. We react. We're sending out, and the point of the message is your words, our words matter. Take a beat, step back, breathe, do the work, as Jaclyn's saying, so that when you respond in a tweet, you respond on a Facebook post, you'll do so with expansiveness, enlightenment, this state of grace. And maybe what you'll offer someone is, I understand your pain, or I see you, as opposed to, that's really, nah, 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 and you react. Because again, we're up leveling, right? So here's this opportunity. We're afforded the opportunity. Do we react or do we respond?
Absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you, James, for that absolutely incredible message. And as always, as we close off the show, it's literally a mic drop moment. There was a couple of them throughout the hour, starting with the first mic drop moment. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and feel free to tag in friends that need to hear this, family members, co-workers, people, partners, everyone around you that you feel would benefit from this message. This is how we share more of the inspiration and we get to empower more people, and we do so with your help. It was an absolute pleasure to have you live with us, and especially if you're watching the replay as well. We will be back next week. Same time, same place. First starting with the Wednesday show, the collective energy, where we also answer your questions, and then the Thursday show, which is the science and the soul, which we look at. We don't know what the topic is just yet.
We don't, right?
We're super excited to find out. So we'll see probably the next couple of days. Both myself and James, we're open to receiving, and we receive the guidance, and then in that split second we go, okay, that's it. And that's how we kind of are rolling each week, where we get to have these beautiful, powerful conversations with you guys together, holding space, inspiring, empowering, and uplifting.
Isn't it true? And it's so, Jaclyn, just for everybody listening, and we've said this before many times, and it is literally the joy for us. It's that beautiful statement of life happens while you're planning. The universe, the plan, they are just constantly acting on our behalves. And so Jaclyn and I, just so everybody knows, we don't plan all this out. We literally say, okay, the Wednesday show, we sit down, current energies, what's happening, and then we take your questions live. And on Thursday, somewhere between now and next, usually the Monday, because we post the shows, something drops in, whether it's to Jaclyn or myself, and we'll go, is it this? Da-da? And we go click, click, and all of a sudden it's there. And then like today's show. And even though yes, here's the topic and here's the plan, guess what? Oh, we're going to up the ante for you. The unseen ups the ante for us in the most beautiful way, in the most synergistic way. So, moral of the story is allow, and we won't be in such a state of crisis. So love you all. Love the Lady Jaclyn. Love Wednesdays and Thursdays. And everybody, join the group. We have March 8th coming up, the Self-Empowerment Initiative. It's our first initiative. So you can go and check both of our Facebook profiles and everything in the group. And we would love to see you there and join us for even more in-depth discussions.
Yay. Thank you, guys. Love to you all.